Hillary's health care is one of the few Clinton campaign platforms that contains specifics. But on other issues important to Americans, what does she believe?
But on specific issues, I've come out with very specific plans. With respect to Social Security, I do have a plan. But personally, I am not going to be advocating any specific fix until I am seriously approaching fiscal responsibility.
Do you, the New York Senator Hillary Clinton, support the New York governor's plan to give illegal immigrants a driver's license?
I did not say that it should be done, but I certainly recognize why Governor Spitzer is trying to do it.
No. You said yes.
No.
You thought it made sense to do it.
No, I didn't, Chris. It makes a lot of sense. What is the governor supposed to do? Do I think this is the best thing for any governor to do? No. I can support the president. I can support an action against Saddam Hussein because I think it's in the long-term interests of our national security. If I had been president in 2003, I never would have started this war. And if it is still going on when I am president in 2009, I will end it. I was one who supported giving President Bush the authority, if necessary, to use force against Saddam Hussein. I believe that that was the right vote. If I had been president in October of 2002, I would have never asked for authority to divert our attention from Afghanistan to Iraq, and I certainly would never have started this war. So it is with conviction that I support this resolution as being in the best interests of our nation, and it is a vote that says clearly to Saddam Hussein, this is your last chance. Disarm or be disarmed. I stand for ending the war in Iraq, bringing our troops home. We're going to have troops remaining there guarding our embassy. We may have a continuing training mission, and we may have a mission against al-Qaeda in Iraq.
There's one Hillary who says, I'm going to bring the troops home right away when I'm elected president. Another Hillary who says, I'm going to keep troops in Iraq indefinitely. One of these two women is lying.
I think she did that as long as she thought that it was still politically advantageous to support the war effort. Once 2006 kicked in and the war became quite unpopular, at least for a while, then she started moving to the anti-war position, reversing her positions which she held only months before.
Not because her heart was full of pacifistic leftist tendencies, because she thought it was the politically expedient way to go.
Hillary Clinton's Machiavellian behavior, her tendency to manipulate, deceive, and destroy for personal gain, is nothing new. This woman, now a hero to feminists, gained much of her power during the Clinton presidency from her ability to deal with her husband's infidelities.
Bill was always heavily involved in the policies of his administration, but he left chasing down his women and silencing them, pursuing the scandals and lying about them, escaping culpability for any of the things in their past, to Hillary. She was his Nixon. She was his evil equivalent. She was the one who made sure that nothing got to him, because she was so good at it. And she was.
Hillary's mastery of the black arts of attack politics is often skillfully cloaked in layers of deniability. But when she needs money, as all candidates do, her imprudence bewilders even her most loyal supporters. The pattern is a familiar one. Huge amounts of money are raised from political insiders, lobbyists, and special interest groups, and questions follow. In the summer of 2007, Hillary was forced to return nearly $900,000 from fundraiser Norman Shue, who is now under indictment for running a Ponzi scheme.
It was the most lavish affair of all. But her campaign said that it cost $400,000, not $1.1 million, so that they could use the other $700,000 for the campaign and use it to buy advertisements. Now the question is, did Hillary know it was a mistake? Of course she did. Number one, she was there and she knew it couldn't have only cost $400,000. Number two, she frequently urged Peter Paul to hold down the expenditures for it. Number three, after the forms were filed with the FEC, Peter Paul told her they were inaccurate, and Hillary continued to file inaccurate forms. And finally, the FEC investigated it and concluded it did cost $1.1 million.
New York!
York, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hillary says we should elect her president because of her tremendous accomplishments in the United States Senate. Well, she's passed roughly 20 bills. Let me tell you what some of them were. To commemorate the 225th anniversary of the American Revolution. To express our appreciation to Alexander Hamilton. To name the Thurgood Marshall Courthouse in Lower Manhattan. To honor the men's and the women's lacrosse high school team from Syracuse High School. To express the sense of Congress that Harriet Tubman, who died over 100 years ago, should have received a federal pension. But is that the legislative gravitas and qualifications on which to elect a president of the United States? Is she kidding?
During her Senate campaign, Hillary promised to create 200,000 jobs, largely to benefit economically depressed upstate New York.
And if you help me get elected, I'll work day and night to put this plan in effect for the people and children of New York.
I'm Marshall Brown. I'm the owner-operator of GMB Farm. I grew up here with my father, but we sold out in 1985, and I started back up in 1987. I milk cows every day of my life for 20 years. Agriculture is New York State's largest industry. I don't know if Hillary was told that when she got off the plane or not. Dairy farming is the largest segment of that. 3 years ago, Hillary Clinton came to Oswego County. She said she had a plan for the dairy industry. Like all her plans, she never gives any specifics, but it's going to make everything all wonderful for us. 2 years after she gave her I Got a Plan speech, the price of milk dropped to the same level it was in 1979, and I'm losing my ass.
Senator Clinton's promise of 200,000 jobs for upstate New York was one of the most irresponsible statements she ever made. Because A, it proved to me that she had no clue what was wrong with upstate New York, and B, there's no way the federal government can deliver that.
I don't fault her for making the promise. I fault her for making bad votes in the Senate against the very tax cuts that would have helped the state of New York.
Because I do have a plan. I have an economic plan for upstate New York to try to make sure that we keep our young people here, that they can have jobs in this area, they can stay and raise their children.
Between 2000 and 2006, over 1 million New Yorkers moved out of the state for economic or financial reasons.
She cares more about her consumers, her food stamps, her welfare programs than she does the American farmer that's producing the food. When the American farmer is eligible for food stamps, there's a problem. Which I am.
Where have you seen the government make anything more efficient and less costly and more effective by its presence? Where have you seen that?
As I've said on many occasions, I still have the scars to show from what we tried to do back in the first 2 years of Bill's administration.
The effort to kill Hillary Care was really good common American sense. Americans know a bad fish when they smell one.
Everything Hillary wants for America is what Canada does for all of its people, any one of whom that has $5 extra in their pocket comes across the border to the United States for health care services.
I think it's worth remembering, after her health care fiasco, the Clinton team put us aside. They gave her ceremonial duties thereafter. She was more like a Pat Nixon than she was like an Eleanor Roosevelt from mid-94 onward, because Bill Clinton's professionals recognized she'd made a hash of the one big policy she'd been given.
Americans believe our healthcare system needs improvement. But what is Hillary's solution?
Hillary is really the closest thing we have in America to a European socialist. She really believes that government should vastly expand its efforts in the areas of healthcare and education, and she wants to increase taxes to do it, from 33% as it is now, up into the mid-40s and high 40s as it is in France and Germany.
I'm going to take $10 billion away from a lot of these industries, starting with money from the HMOs that are getting too much out of Medicare, starting with the no-bid contracts for Halliburton, starting with the defense industry that needs to be pared down and reined in. I've been very clear about that.
And as she talks on the campaign trail, her purpose of government, as she sees it, is to remold society for the common good.
The common good in this case means government. It means Washington. She wants government to be in control. She wants government to direct the economy.
The other day, the oil companies reported the highest profits in the history of the world. I want to take those profits and I want to put them into a strategic energy fund.
She expects to use the government to become extremely involved with the lives of the people in this country because government knows best.
So when she talks about nationalizing health care, she's not kidding. She's been at this now for 10 years. She wants to take over the health care system.
Should be between one physician and the patient, not between an army of bureaucrats and the patient. If people give their health to the government, what does the government not control? The federal government from 3,000 miles away is not your doctor.
Both Clintons are well aware the war on terror could be the key issue in Hillary's run for the presidency. Both have been quick to fault the Bush administration for failing to prevent the 9/11 attacks, while absolving the Clinton White House of any missed opportunities.
There were many times, 8 to 10 that I'm aware of, in the 1990s that we either had a chance as a country to capture bin Laden or to kill him, 8 to 10. And every time we had a viable opportunity, Clinton chose not to pull the trigger.
You know, and I'm certain that if my husband and his national security team had been shown a classified report entitled Bin Laden Determined to Attack Inside the United States, he would have taken it more seriously than history suggests it was taken by our current president and his national security team.
Patterson says that's laughable. He says President Clinton was briefed by multiple U.S. intelligence agencies of al-Qaeda plans to attack the United States.
We knew about the potential. Nick specifically pointed to the possibility of using hijacked airliners into the Pentagon, CIA headquarters, and it also talked about New York City.
The compound surrounded, they know where bin Laden is, and what they need to do is coordinate with Washington, so they're on satellite phone communication with Sandy Berger, Richard Clarke, George Tenet, et al. From Washington to basically get the final green light to go ahead with this operation.
Our people are in place. Now, it's been confirmed that Osama bin Laden is in the building on the site. You are the National Security Advisor. Can't you give the order?
Look, George, if you feel confident, you can present your recommendation to the president yourself.
So if it all goes bad, it comes down on my head, like Janet Reno in Waco. The buck stops down the hall.
Mr. Berger, sir.
Unbelievable. Did they abort us? Yes.
Is tough on terror as long as it's popular. But once again, the real Hillary Clinton remains a mystery.
We went through all the speeches that were posted on her website, some 200 of them, and there's no speech that's about counterterrorism or talks about the threat to the homeland.
Whatever Mrs. Clinton took away from the 9/11 experience is now slipping away. Or perhaps she never meant it in the first place. But as far as I know, Senator Clinton simply has not wanted to discuss with clarity and certainly with the kind of authority you would expect from a now senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, that we are at war with a totalitarian ideology.
I'd like to see a president in either party who is going to be honest about the nature of the danger and willing to stand up and say this is what needs to be done, even if it's not popular at the moment. She doesn't seem to have any instinct to be able to do that, whatever her high intelligence might be.
Who is the real Hillary Clinton? Clinton scholars and writers hoping for an answer were shocked to learn that, despite Freedom of Information Act stipulations, after 3 years, the Clinton Library has only released 0.5% of its records.
This is the mentality of a tyranny, and yet the media treats this as if it's no big deal. It is a very, very big deal. We paid for those documents at that library. Much of our money goes into that library. It's a federally run operation.
The Clinton Library is known locally as Little Rock's Fort Knox. nearly 2 million pages of records covering Hillary's years in the White House are locked away, clouding her role in policymaking. Over 300 Freedom of Information Act requests are pending.
Well, that's not my decision to make, and I don't believe that any president or first lady ever has, but certainly we'll move as quickly as our circumstances and the processes of the National Archives permits.
This idea they're claiming now that we're trying to release them, we're trying to as fast as we can, but the library just won't let us release them. You want the papers released, order the papers released. They're your papers.
A tendency of this administration, from the top all the way to the bottom, is to withhold information, to resist legitimate requests for information, to refuse to be forthcoming about information that is of significance and relevant to the jobs that all of you do and the interests of the American people.
I think the American people have a right to as much of the public record as possible about Hillary Clinton. Those records should be released before the 2008 election so we can learn a lot more about exactly how much influence she had in the White House, what her positions were in the White House, and how she acted in the White House.